You are Jerry Sandusky's attorney.
Yes, I am.
Jerry Sandusky has been called the worst criminal since Adolf Hitler. How on earth can you represent him?
Well, he's an innocent man. He deserves a fair trial. He's always claimed to be innocent.
Didn't an assistant coach testify that he saw your client sexually assault a young boy in the shower?
No, that's not true. There was what they call a grand jury presentment came out. It was leaked to the media. And in this grand jury presentment, it was stated that this assistant coach, Mike McCreary, saw Jerry Sandusky sexually assault this young boy in the shower. Turns out that's not what he said, and that wasn't true. What he said is that he heard certain things and he saw certain things, and he assumed that Jerry Sandusky was involved in the sexual assault. There was, at the same time, an ex-Marine who heard about this allegation and came forward. He spoke to Jerry Sandusky's lawyer and Jerry Sandusky's investigator, and he told them, I was that boy in the shower in 2002, and there was no sexual assault. The police later interviewed this young man, and he reaffirmed that there was nothing inappropriate that occurred between him and Jerry Sandusky.
Did the Marine testify at the trial?
Well, here's where it gets very peculiar. The young man gets tied up with one of these lawyers who was representing people who were suing Penn State, getting millions of dollars for them. The lawyer goes to representatives of the Attorney General's office who was prosecuting the case, and the lawyer tells them, I represent the boy in the shower. He was sexually assaulted numerous times. So they interview the young man. He does not confirm that he was sexually assaulted multiple times. So then the lawyer says, I'll let you interview him again, but I have to be present during the interview. And the Attorney General's office declined that. They said they wouldn't interview him if the lawyer was present. At this point, it gets to be truly bizarre. It comes time for the trial. The Attorney General's office representatives can't find the young man. They suspect that he has been hidden by the lawyer in some cabin in the woods in central Pennsylvania. Later on, we have a hearing and the lawyer is asked, did you secrete this witness from the prosecution? He won't answer. The prosecutor in the case tells the jury that the young man in the shower was known only to God.
Your client was convicted by a jury in a court of law. Why can't you accept that?
What happened in Belfont in June of 2012 was not a fair trial. It was a spectacle. It's what we lawyers call a media circus. The charges against Jerry Sandusky are ridiculous. You know, there are people who support Joe Paterno who say that Jerry Sandusky is some kind of a monster, but Joe Paterno didn't know about it. Look, if Jerry Sandusky did half of what they say he did, Joe knew. Joe would have to know. But the point is, everybody would have to know. You can't commit this kind of crime over this period of time without everybody knowing about it. Joe Paterno didn't know because it didn't happen.
Wasn't it recently reported that Joe Paterno knew about Sandusky in 1976?
Our friends in the media have reported, it is reported that there was some individual who indicated that in 1976 he was sexually assaulted by Jerry Sandusky, and he reported this matter to Joe Paterno. Joe Paterno did nothing about it. In 1976, Jerry Sandusky was an obscure linebackers coach. In 1977, the subsequent year, Joe Paterno promoted him to the position of defensive coordinator. In 1977, Jerry Sandusky founded the Second Mile to help troubled youths. He appointed Joe Paterno to be part of his honorary board. So if you take this story at face value, Joe Paterno was informed of these acts in 1976, and within 1 year, he is promoting this man to defensive coordinator. He is agreeing to be part of this honorary board of directors for the Second Mile. No. That's crazy. You'd have to be crazy to do that. You can't accept that story. That story about the 1976 assault has never been tested in court. It's from an anonymous source. We don't know who it is. It's crazy.
But there were so many victims who said it did.
Long before I became involved in this case, many people would ask me, isn't Jerry Sandusky some kind of a monster? And my reply was always, well, yeah. If he did it. And people would say, well, how could he not have done it? And my reply was always, there are simply too many, and there's just too much money involved. You know, am I suggesting that we should scrutinize what these young men, and they were young men, they weren't boys, said in this particular case? Should we scrutinize their testimony just because they received millions of dollars and they testified about things that they had previously denied was true? Oh, yeah. I'm suggesting we scrutinize them very carefully. It's amazing what you can get people to do if you put millions of dollars in front of them and you subject them to suggestive police questioning where the police are telling them what they should say because of what other people said, and you subject them to psychological counseling to help them remember things that they never remembered. It's really amazing what you can get them to say.
But they testified in court that he sexually assaulted them.
These people who testified in court, do you know what they said before there were grand jury leaks, before they were subjected to the police questioning, which was so suggestive, before they hired these lawyers to get a lot of money for them? Do you know what they said? I'll show you what they said. Here. Alleged victim number one, the guy who started the whole thing. He denied that there was any sexual contact between himself and Jerry Sandusky. Alleged victim number two, the ex-Marine who claimed to be the boy in the shower that McCreary saw, who was asked, did Jerry ever touch you in a manner you felt to be improper? His answer, never, ever did anything like that occur. Alleged victim number three, advised that Sandusky never did anything inappropriate with him. Here's one. Alleged victim number six. He was asked the following question. Tell me, did Jerry ever touch you in a place that was inappropriate? His answer, no, he did not. Alleged victim number eight's interesting. There was a janitor by the name of Ron Petrosky. Ron Petrosky testified at trial that another janitor, Jim Calhoun, told him he had seen this sexual assault by Jerry Sandusky. Jim Calhoun was not called at trial because the prosecutor said that he was suffering from dementia. Turns out, what the jury never heard was that there was a tape made of an interview of Jim Calhoun prior to the trial. Jim Calhoun was asked a question. Was the person in the shower who sexually assaulted the boy Jerry Sandusky? His response was, Coach Sandusky? No, it wasn't him.
What do you mean there's too many?
There's way too many. Listen, you've got a guy here who's been married for 50 years. He spent his whole adult life counseling young people. He is a pillar in the community. He's probably the second best known man in that whole community. And what they're telling you is that he sexually assaulted, 25, 35 different young men, hundreds of times, at times when he was coaching football, when he was at football practice. It doesn't make any sense. But you see, when you're talking about the Sandusky case, when you're talking about anything related to Jerry Sandusky, it doesn't have to make sense. Make an absurd allegation, and you can make $1 million. It's like winning the lottery. And Penn State paid. You know, we're learning that Penn State was paying out this money without any significant verification. There was money paid to these individuals, people who gave no statement under oath. They gave no deposition. They didn't even give a signed statement. Pay them. The only thing that Penn State was concerned about was putting this thing behind them.
You say you just want a fair trial, but he had a fair trial, didn't he?
Listen, in America, you can convict anybody of anything if they're not properly represented. Jerry Sandusky operated under the delusion that so many people do. Innocent people who believe that the system will protect them because they're innocent. The system will exonerate them. The system will work for them. System works for people who have good lawyers. Unfortunately for Jerry Sandusky, he didn't have one.
Why do you say he didn't have effective legal counsel?
Look, I didn't say they were ineffective. They said they were ineffective. You know, on the eve of trial, these lawyers came before the judge and they asked to withdraw. The reason they wanted to withdraw is that they could not effectively represent Mr. Sandusky. They could not possibly prepare for the trial. To go forward with this trial, it would be a violation of the canons of ethics. It would be unethical to proceed because they were so ineffective. You know, I think that they lost interest in this case. And the reason I say that, if you go on YouTube or the internet and you look up an interview that Anderson Cooper did of the defense attorney, Mr. Amendola, after the jury came back, Amendola always said that he thought that his client was innocent. The jury has just found him guilty. And he's in front of these interviewers. He's laughing. He's joking. He asked whether the interviewer is going to be cute. Look, back where I come from, if you represent a client that you think is innocent and he's just been convicted in a court of law, it's no laughing matter.
If what you say is true, why would Penn State pay out so much money?
Almost from the moment that this allegation was made public, this timid, feckless university board of trustees or directors or whatever they are simply folded. The only thing they were concerned about was putting it behind them to avoid the publicity. They didn't care about the truth. They didn't care about whether an innocent man would spend the rest of his life in jail. They didn't care about whether the reputation of probably college football's greatest football coach would be blemished forever. They didn't care whether the reputation of probably the finest land-grant institution in this country was tarnished by the vilest of allegations. They didn't care about whether they were the victim of a fraud. Do you know something? Do you realize that in the event that we're successful and we get a new trial and the truth comes out of this thing, do you realize how many of these people will be affected? Do you realize the stake that so many people have in upholding this false conviction of Mr. Sandusky? You know, recently I was watching a television commentator, a national sports commentator, and what she suggested that it was wrong for Penn State to honor Joe Paterno. She said that they were pulling at the scab. They needed to give it time to heal. She and Penn State and those lemmings that follow along with that philosophy are operating under the same delusion. And that's this, that this is going to heal. This will never heal as long as this monumental lie is allowed to stand.
How do you think history will treat this prosecution?
History will be most unkind to this case. We have been trying to get people to support our cause in this case, and it's interesting, there are many people who know that Jerry is innocent. They know that this is one of the worst debacles in the history of American jurisprudence, but they're scared. They're afraid to get involved. They're afraid of the media mavens and the thought police who are going to accuse them of coddling the worst child molester in the history of America. It's this fear of what they call this toxicity, the toxic case, that keeps this lie in place. But on the other hand, there are those who are willing to fight. You know, 20 years from now, when this mess gets straightened out, and it will be straightened out, there will be an accounting. What will be our legacy? What will people say about what we did in this situation? To those people who believe that Jerry's innocent and they're afraid to get involved, I say this. You may not be willing to fight this thing, but by damn, you're about to watch some people who are. A lot of people ask me the same question that you've asked me today. How can you represent Jerry Sandusky? I've been doing this kind of work for 45 years. I think that any trial lawyer who has any ounce of idealism left in him longs for this type of a case. You're representing someone who's innocent. You're representing the truth. You're on the right side of the cause. You have good people fighting with you, and the whole world's against you. Doesn't get better than that. It's the chance of a lifetime. That's why I'm representing Jerry Sandusky.